Federal court decision could slow oil industry efforts to store carbon in the Gulf of Mexico. This doesn't make any sense at all to me. Let's read through this together. See if we can make some logical sense out of this. But this seems to be completely a waste of time. Fossil fuel companies' hopes of sequestering captured greenhouse gas emissions at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico hit a snag last week when a federal court revoked a gigantic oil and gas lease sale that the Biden administration held last November. ExxonMobil was the biggest spender at the time, bidding nearly 100 leases in shallow waters. Because the areas it bid on weren't expected to be very lucrative for oil and gas drilling, experts speculated that ExxonMobil would use the areas for storing captured CO2. So what they do is with the captured CO2, instead of just releasing it, they need some place to put it to be more climate friendly, shall we say. So they pump it into the ground, and it just sits there. And it's apparently what ExxonMobil wanted to do with this land, and a judge has revoked the sale of all this land. But late last week, U.S. District Court Judge Rudolph Contreras canceled leases issued during the November sale. The enormous sale, which auctioned off 80 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico, was challenged in federal court by environmental groups when it was first announced in August. Activists criticized the Biden administration for conducting the sale, even as it pledged to slash planet heating pollution. See, this is what I don't understand. Activists were mad at Biden selling this land. If these companies are creating all this CO2 and they need some place to put it, why is it a bad thing for them to be storing it someplace that's out of everyone's way and isn't going to be released into the atmosphere? I don't understand why this is why activists would have a problem with this. You would think they would be all for this, but I guess there's something about this I don't understand. Let's read on. In a court opinion released late last week, Contreras writes that the Bureau of Ocean Management committed a, quote, grave error in deciding to hold the lease sale and should have considered how the sale of oil and gas extracted there to foreign consumers would generate greenhouse gas emissions. His decision means the Interior Department will have to conduct a new environmental review that accounts for how fossil fuels drawn from the areas auctioned off in November would contribute to climate change. So his argument is, you could use this this land to drill for oil, and if you obtain oil from this land, you could sell it to people who don't have the same environmental standards that we do. Therefore, it's going to damage our climate. It's going to affect, add to climate change, right? That's his argument. Okay. I guess ExxonMobil declined to provide comment to The Verge on the court's decision and how it might affect the company's plans to capture and store carbon dioxide. Earlier this month, the company pledged to reach net zero emissions for its operations by 2050, a relatively limited climate commitment since it excludes emissions that come from the burning of oil and gas products the company sells. I don't know how you can make it responsible for the oil and gas products that it sells. I mean, dadgum. ExxonMobil has pointed to carbon capture and storage as one strategy for reducing its pollution. CCS involves using devices to capture the carbon dioxide that power plants and industrial facilities produce, and then finding places to store that CO2 underground, which is a fantastic technology. Why not use it? You're so mad about CO2 being created, and Exxon has invested heavily in this CCS, carbon capture and storage, and they have a plan for using this land for that purpose. ExxonMobil believes the greatest opportunity for CO2 storage in the United States is in the Gulf of Mexico. Todd Splitter, a spokesperson for Exxon's low-carbon solutions business, said in an email to E&E News. ExxonMobil is working alongside Shell, Chevron, and about a dozen other companies to develop CCS technologies around Houston's industrial area. These companies recently projected that they could store up to 50 million metric tons of CO2 per year, a fraction of the amount of storage they think is available along the U.S. Gulf Coast by 2030, and then double the amount by 2040. The Gulf of Mexico's proximity to industrial oil and gas facilities along the Houston Ship Channel and Louisiana's chemical corridor has made it a desirable area for carbon sequestration. Well, this judge has said no. So the Biden administration auctioned off all of this land in the Gulf, and the judge has canceled that sale. So I'm not exactly sure. This is going to have to go to a higher court, I would imagine, or they're just going to have to. The Biden administration is going to have to figure out. There's obviously a conflict here. They say they can sell this land. The federal court says you can't because they're going to use it for nefarious purposes, damaging to the environment. CO2 is a great CO2 CCS, carbon capture and storage. It's a great technology. This should be utilized if people are worried about greenhouse gases and that sort of thing, and climate change. And we know the Biden administration has been very vocal in their support for climate change, combating climate change, right? So this is on them to figure out how to do this legally, and you'll have to let me know what you think. If this federal judge has a good argument in pointing out, well, if you drill for oil here, not use it for carbon capture, not use it for storage of CO2. If you drill for oil here, and if you sell it to somebody who doesn't have the same standards that we do, that would be damaging to the environment. Does that sound like a good reason to cancel these? In your opinion, let me know. Nextly, we have the International Space Station is not long for this world, at least not run by NASA. NASA details transition of International Space Station to commercial operations. The International Space Station will retire in 2030 after being extended by the Biden administration. NASA has provided an update to Congress on the transition of the International Space Station into a commercial operation, detailing how it's working to develop supply and demand for the, quote, low Earth orbit commercial economy, which is apparently a thing now. The space agency has already entered into one contract to attach commercial modules to a space station docking port and awarded agreements for the design of 3 free-flying commercial space stations. The U.S. industry is developing these commercial destinations to begin operations in the late 2020s for both government and private sector customers. Concurrent with space station operations, end quote, NASA said in an International Space Station Transition Report published Tuesday. The report said NASA is focusing on inspiring humankind through STEM student participation, microgravity research and development, orbital activities, partnering with minority institutions, and exploring, quote, ways to engage a diverse group of students, educators, and the general public through inspirational opportunities. This be used for education and bolstering the young people getting into STEM, at least it sounds like. NASA is also hosting hundreds of different experiments at the ISS National Laboratory, including from commercial users, government agencies, and academia. As the ISS enters its 3rd decade of operations, is it really that old? Well, it's all about pushing deep space exploration. Quote, we look forward to sharing our lessons learned and operations experience with the private sector to help them develop safe, reliable, and cost-effective destinations in space, Phil McAllister, Director of Commercial Space at NASA headquarters, said in a statement. NASA will then purchase goods and services it needs from such commercial destination providers in space. This will save the agency money so it can focus on Artemis missions to the Moon and Mars. The report follows the Biden administration committing on December 31st to extend the ISS operation through 2030. The extension from closing in 2024 came after NASA already began making plans to transition the ISS to commercial space stations and other private platforms in low Earth orbit. So it will be still up there, but it will no longer. It will be. It's transitioning, being run commercially. So you may be able to, who knows, vacation one day on the International Space Station, or you may be in some sort of advanced college class that gets to have a field trip. That would be cool. There's an image there. Let me blow that up. Oh, that's amazing. What a great shot. Anyway, there's your update on the International Space Station. Thanks for watching today. Hope you found these two things interesting. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you've watched this far, thank you. Like the video. Y'all have a good day. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.